For most American Christians, the most visible thing that's falling apart is the old secular liberal order. This is something that sort of took root in the late 19th century, and the seeds of its destruction were sown in the sexual revolution beginning in the 60s. And we started to bear fruit in our time. We got cancer earlier. We're in stage 4 now. And the patient is about to die. We find ourselves having rented a bad movie. We're 30 minutes in, and we don't like it at all, so we rewind and try again. We can't just turn back the clock to 1950s Eisenhower America and say, okay, let's just freeze it there. The logic of our current rebellion was already at work. And the culprit is this dogma of secularism, that we can be good and right and decent and freedom-loving without Jesus. That's simply not the case. Christians have been told over and over and over, we've evolved, we've progressed to this point where a religious foundation for us here in the modern world is simply unthinkable. It's simply impossible. I'd say, well, it's still a free country. Watch me think it. The collapse of secularism should show us that we can't go back to a pretended neutrality. We have to realize it's Christ or chaos. And if you will not have Christ, you are embracing the chaos. The world needs saving. The answer has been given to us in the gospel. We have that answer. And so what are we to do? Well, we're to save the world.
Good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
Welcome to the Friday morning chat session with Michael and Constitution Vet, also known as Ben. Ben, did you see that trailer ahead of time, or is that the first time you've seen it?
I saw it a few seconds ago before the broadcast started.
Have you? So that is a documentary coming out in a couple days, 3 days. Well, after
It's
the
pretty
weekend.
awesome.
Yeah. Well, I don't know if I've said this here, but I've started multiple books, right? I've got a bunch of books in the works. None of them are finished. I got one that's about to be finished, something I'm working on that producer Gina is helping me with. But one of the books that I want to write is called How God Used YouTube, or something like that. And, how God used YouTube. And one of the ways God used YouTube is YouTube recommended Doug Wilson, like some of he's a pastor. He's a senior pastor of a church in Moscow, Idaho. And I had never heard of him until 3 months ago. And now I'm binge listening to anything I can get my hands on. He's got 3 different YouTube channels that he's a part of. He's got a bunch of sermon series on different things, Reformed basics to political commentary, and Christian Reformed basics all the way to political commentary. And he's a guy who does not separate civic life from the faith life. And I mean, he's like, America was founded as a Christian nation, and because we have moved away from that fact, right, that secularism had taken root, that people don't actually believe that anymore. But we are a Christian nation that is currently backslidden, and he's like, there's going to be reformation, right? There, one way or another, secularism is spinning out of control and burning out, and that's kind of what this documentary is about. It's like, bad times are coming. Good. like good, because when bad times come, that means God is cleansing and purifying, and the good people who are not caught up in the nonsense will remain. Right?
Right.
All that can shake is going to shake, and then that cannot be shaken, those with firm faith and a clear understanding of what's going on, will remain. And that will be the remnant that restores and restarts this thing. Anyway, that's a brief overview of the idea. And I believe it. I believe the hard times are coming, and they're ordained by God because of our wickedness. Yet it's part of his plan, so it's a good thing.
Yeah,
But-
I think you
Go
would
ahead.
really enjoy hearing the writings and the words from my pastor, Pastor Tom Pennington. He leads the Countryside Bible Church where I go to here, and he's phenomenal. If you go onto the church's website, you can see all of his sermons, all of his work. And I remember, like last year, he spent like 4 weeks breaking down the reasons why CRT is evil and why it's like the worst thing that can happen. And he went into great detail, providing the historical context to where it started, where it is now. But the reason why I love the church that he leads is that this guy spent years going over Romans. Like he will break down every single verse, word by word. He'll give you the historical context as to the why these things happen. And he'll fully admit, he's like, I don't have all the answers. None of us have all the answers. But our goal is to continually dig and ask questions to find the answers. And the answers are all right here, you know? But yeah, no, that's awesome. That trailer looks pretty legit.
I want to bring up the comment. I guess I can do it. I can do it because I am producing. Ha! DK, we should lead by example. Put the fish on the inside of your car and drive accordingly. Amen, DK. So, I mean, I'm not opposed to having a fish on the outside, but the point is our behavior makes us salty, right? If we are consistent in our behavior, that's what gets people thirsty. They're like, in these trying times, why do you have peace? Why are you calm? Right? No, I'm as frustrated as the next guy that Carrie Lake has to go into a legal battle and may not be governor. Right?
Sure.
I'm frustrated as heck that
Sure.
that is what she has to resort to. But I also realize God's not surprised. Right? God is in control. He's not
Right.
surprised about what's happening. And so we should not be as well. We should take it and go, okay, it didn't go the way I thought it was going to go, but it certainly went the way God knew it was going to go. And so it's our, it's part and parcel of being human and having a limited scope, right? 70 to 100 years or, however long we are projected for these mortal bodies to withstand entropy and atrophy. Whereas God is like, it's all planned out, and it's going according to his plan, and he knows what's unfolding, and we are participants yet observers, and we forget about the observing part. We tend to think that we're going to make things happen. We are intrinsic, like we are essential to God's plan. That's how he designed it. He designed it all with us to have free will. He created our free will, and he created the decisions that we're going to make, and they genuinely are free will. But it's unfolding in a way that he preordained, and it's good, right? So America is under judgment, but the remnant, right? We have, when you're backslidden, there is repentance, right? That is the direction that it's going, with people waking up and people being red pilled. I consider all of those things as the awakening, but we just want it to happen yesterday, right? We want it to happen yesterday, and it's going to be a long process. And I'm afraid we're supposed to talk about, we're going to talk about judges, and we're going to talk about a few other things, but I want to just get this out, that because we saw gas prices double in a year. For us, that's crazy. It's like, what? Doubling in a year? But the fact of the matter is, that's like on the frog in the boiling pot of water. That's like just turning it up one notch, right? You turn the heat up slowly. Gas prices going up, doubling, it's just like one little notch. When gas prices quadruple in 2 months, right? That might be coming, right? When they quadruple, or when they go up 100 times, right? When economies that have collapsed in the past, like Brazil, when your money has to be delivered in wheelbarrows to buy a loaf of bread, right? We haven't faced that, right? But that has happened. When major thriving, successful economies collapsed, it gets dramatic. And I'm afraid we're not even there. We're not even, we have no grasp of what's coming. And I don't know. I don't know that it's actually coming, but I have a sense that it may, at least in the next 2 years, we're going to see something. What are your projections for the next 2 years? Good and bad.
Well, to answer that, let me go back for a second. You said keywords. You're mentioning that we're observers. Observing is one thing. I would add to that. I'd say one of our biggest issues is that the way we react after we observe. It's one thing to observe, wait, think, and then react. It's nothing completely to observe and immediately react with the gut emotions, which is what we've been seeing, quite frankly, from people on our side. And within the past couple of weeks, we see all these platforms, all these people on this platform who respond to things that don't go their way immediately without stopping for a moment and just thinking. And of course, that's caused division, and that's added to this defeatist mentality that we've been going through. But tying that into the Christian perspective, it's like if you just stop, breathe, and think for 1 second, you'll realize, wait a second, things may not be going the way I want them to. Okay. But there's probably a reason for that. That right there. If you get to the point where you can say there's probably a reason for this, there's probably a bigger plan at stake, there's probably things going on that I can't control, and I need to accept that, then you're on the road to having that peace, that serenity that you mentioned earlier. And that's what's caused me the most frustration. It's like, yo, people, patriots, like, I know we're not all in the same view when it comes to our faith. I get that. We're all diverse in our own way. But if we really want to be victorious in all of this, we need to be comfortable with being uncomfortable. We need to be okay with not being in the green pastures. We need to be okay struggling. If you think for 1 second that we're going to get that single victory and everything's going to be okay, no, it's not going to happen. This is going to be an endurance. And what was so shocking to me is the past 2 years, we've agreed on that. We've all been saying, yep, this is an endurance. This is not a sprint. We're in this for the long haul. But then once the midterms hit, all of a sudden that mentality was gone. It's like, oh, I didn't get my way. I'm so mad. This is horrible all over. I'm like, yo, what?
Yeah, it's like the hypnosis, right? We
Right.
get hypnotized by media, right? People who track it. And it's important that we pay attention to current events, right? It is important. And there's all,
Of course.
the majority of people are not, right? And so then we who are a small contingent that are on the front lines paying attention to what's going on and pretty baffled and frustrated that most people don't see it our way. But I want to get to the new Congress.
Sure. Yeah. Well, just to help you transition to that, to answer your ultimate question, what are the projections? Well, the projection is always going to be good. Always. The pathway to that good might be painful, sure, but the projection will always be good. Why? Because God is in charge. And that's the thing we all need to wrap our head around. Our goals, our projections, our needs, wants, desires, that's one thing. But to truly get that sense of peace is knowing that no matter what happens to our pathetic little puny brain world, is accepting the fact that, hey, be of good cheer. Chill out, bro. Have yourself a moon pie. Get a 7-Up. Relax. I'm quoting Sheriff Grady Judd from Florida. Anyways, relax. God's in charge.
Yes, right. The roof is still over your head, right? For the time being, I wanted to tell a personal story to kind of maybe drive the point home, and we'll get to the Congress here. The clock is ticking. But when I was 21, I was engaged. And I won't go into the details, but I was engaged with this girl. She was gorgeous, and I couldn't believe she said yes. It was one of those scenarios. But I was away at college. I came home, the place that I had been sent out from, and asked her to marry me over spring break, and then went back to college. And then like 10 weeks later, I think partly because of the distance, she's breaking it off with me. And like, we were engaged. And I was like, I can't believe it. She's this amazing Christian girl and beautiful, et cetera, et cetera. And, my whole world was wrapped up in that reality, that scenario. And then it was just pulled out from under me. And I was devastated that things didn't go the way I thought they were going.
Mm-hmm.
And now I am so glad that I didn't marry that person, right? Nothing wrong with her. I mean, I know that she's happily married with kids now and everything, still a good, godly Christian woman, but she was not the one for me. And I wouldn't be where I am in, working the career I am and doing the things I am if I had married her. My life would have gone in a totally different direction. And I may have found some satisfaction in that lifestyle, but I believe right now I'm fulfilling what God has created me for, working in the entertainment industry, et cetera, doing this stuff. So it's like, we don't know why we go through these things and why they go haywire and they go not the way we thought they were supposed to go and it was all good. But God does know. And God is using, and so part of what's happening is we're learning to hear him. We're supposed to be learning to hear him, not just in the word of God, but in our scenarios, in our culture, and what getting back to the trailer at the beginning, Doug Wilson, the guy is, there's few things that I disagree with him on, even theologically, but most of what I'm listening to, I'm like, this guy is closer to applying scripture to current events and culture and global culture than anybody I've ever heard of. And he is acting it out in his church, and people are seeing that, and people are flocking from California, like people fleeing the pandemic. He keeps saying this, like, man, we're growing just from people fleeing these insane lockdowns and stuff.
Right.
All right. So we had a victory in the midterms, right? We were victorious. We actually, there was a red
wave.
And there was a red wave, and I don't know if this has happened in the past or when the last time it happened, but we won the popular vote. I don't remember the last time Republicans won the popular vote. It's just that the distribution of those votes were, now grouped into states, and the separation, the balkanization of the voting blocks, et cetera, and some of the new rules that are allowing, ballot harvesting, all that stuff. But we won. Like, we won the House of Representatives, which is very powerful. What's coming?
Yeah, we did win the House of Representatives. We gained 140 seats. Let that sink in for a second. Okay. We gained 140 seats, and was it 2/3 of our half of Congress, of the GOP side, are January 6th or are 2020 election deniers. They're all MAGA red-blooded patriots. And that's a big deal. Why? Because even if McCarthy becomes Speaker of the House, even if that happens, he has to basically grovel to these red-blooded patriots who will not support anything he wants to do unless he's going to follow through with his promises. And that's my take on that.
Repeat that one more time.
Which part?
What you just said.
Oh, so even if McCarthy does become Speaker of the House, he has to grovel to all these red-blooded patriots in the House, which we now control, and he has to uphold the things that he promises. Oh, and by the way, all those investigations into Trump, yeah, gone.
Right.
J6 committee, done.
Yeah.
Man,
The show trials are over.
yeah. Isn't it interesting how all of a sudden now there's legitimate investigations into the Biden crime family? Verbatim, Biden crime family? It's like,
Yeah.
okay.
the gift that keeps on giving, the Hunter Biden laptop, right?
Yeah, it's like,
okay. And people think, okay, I'm curious because we are cynical, right? We
Yeah.
Republicans, are cynical. We're like, nothing's going to happen. Now they have power, blah, blah, blah. They're going to cater to, they're the inside, the elites, the blah, 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 blah. But I can't help but think, because we're in unprecedented times and unprecedented things happen, one of those unprecedented things could be actual indictments, right? Actual indictments of high level, not the low hanging fruit, but high level people that names that we recognize.
Right.
Is that coming, right? And so we don't know, but we tend to think, oh, they only have 2 years as a Congress now. All of the investigations that are about to, launch full steam have already been in the works, right? The
Right.
Republicans have been sitting back looking at this data from the Hunter Biden laptop for over a year, maybe 2 years already. And so there's plenty of stuff formulated. So it could be steam. I mean, I don't want to peddle hopium. I don't want to get people's hopes up too much, but it feels like you're saying 2/3 of the Republicans that are in there now are the quote unquote, election deniers, which means Marjorie Taylor Greene is actually the de facto lead. She may not be the one voted in, but if she is the voice of the majority of that group, then they're following her lead. And if she says, we'll pledge our allegiance to McCarthy for now, but because our margins are so narrow, they have to listen to us if they want to win, right? If because it's so close, Republican, Democrat, we can, we kind of can steer the ship from the rear or whatever. Well, I guess that's where it's steered anyway. All right. Well, so that's good news, right? It is good news. We need to celebrate the good news. What are other good? What's other good news? What other wins? What's going on?
Well, I mean, I don't know if you've heard, but DJT is running again.
Oh yeah.
Donald Trump is running for president. It's official. That pathetic feud between Trump and DeSantis, that's done. That's already cleared the air. Like, that was an absolute waste of time. That was bait. And sadly, some conservatives on the YouTube fell for it. And it's like, guys, this is obviously bait. This is obviously a ploy, and it's not going to go anywhere. And lo and behold, it didn't go anywhere. But the big success is when we take a step back and look at the past, look at the history. It's very easy to become cynical. And to be fair, I think we do need some cynics in this world. I think we do need people who are cynical, who are willing to be like, well, I don't know. I think that's healthy. However, we need to find that balance between the cynics and those who say, well, actually, it's not that bad. And this leads me to the second point. If Trump did not if he did not appoint over 30% of the federal judges during his tenure, if he did not produce more judges in the past 40 years since Carter, I believe, if he didn't do that, we would not have the red tsunami in the courts, and that is where it truly matters. I got 5 things listed here from the Supreme Court. Destroying the OSHA vax mandate, striking down the CDC eviction moratorium, knocking out the EPA emissions, reversing Roe v. Wade, supporting the Second Amendment rights. And then, by the way, let's not forget about states. It's my favorite thing to talk about, state sovereignty. Okay. The federal courts, the circuit courts in the states, The student debt forgiveness, yeah, that's done. The FAA mask mandate in airports and airplanes, done. Big tech censorship, yeah, bye-bye, gone. Okay. And then on top of all of that, the state legislatures are blood red. The state courts are flipped red. I mean, this is what caused me the most frustration recently. All of these big names on these platforms, like Daily Wire, calling you guys out, even Fox News calling them out, even independent YouTubers, I'm calling you guys out. It's like all of them immediately got on the bandwagon of this defeatist narrative. It's Trump's fault. This is horrible. This is not the red tsunami. It's the red trickle. Blah, 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 blah. All this divisive verbiage. And I'm looking at the numbers. I'm looking at the evidence. I'm like, oh, I'm sorry. You didn't get your chicken tendies cooked the way you wanted it to? And now you're acting just like the freaking left? Are you serious? Anyways, sorry. That's my little rant.
No.
But
I'm with you, and I concur, and I agree that we look at certain races, right? And for us, we'll get fixated on a favorite, right, and something that we think is a lock, and then it doesn't go our way, and we that blinds us to what actually happened, right? Think about Florida. Think about being in Florida and Miami-Dade going red, right? Think about being in Ohio and like, was it Wisconsin now has a super majority? Like,
Iowa red now.
There's all of these states that are just more and more solid, and just because you may not be in a state that happened in, it bodes well for the rest of the nation that there are sovereign states that are not blinded by this idiocy that is destroying the other states. The other states have to collapse further before they wake up and then go begging the federal government for bailout money because they've run their states into the ground, right? So
well, like the point you're making earlier, moving forward, okay? I'm not naive. Did we lose some battles? Yeah, sure we did. Good. Why is it good? Well, because it gives us new opportunities to do other things.
And do a post-mortem and see why, right?
Yeah, exactly.
They did something better than we did, and we need to, as long as it's legal, right? Got to be careful here. So,
of course.
Before we're almost out of time, but I do my Friday morning Doug Q. Michael with Doug Tenaple and Quentin from Out of the Darkness, and not sure on Q, but Doug is now, he's turned against Trump. He thinks Trump is, he's one that is like, Trump's over. That was, and I'm like, last week it was just he and I talking about it, and I was kind of conceding points, but as I've thought about it, I'm like, I still think Trump DeSantis is an unstoppable ticket. I still think, that this division is a media hyped. It is the enemy trying to divide and conquer. It's like, now we can split them between Trump and DeSantis, and even Fox is in on it, and the Republicans all hate each other now because they're disappointed, and they're playing up this disappointment from the midterms, and it's successfully dividing. And I think that's going to evaporate, and I think the smoke is going to clear. I kind of think it's going to be Trump DeSantis. I kind of think it's.
Here's the thing, even if it isn't a Trump DeSantis ticket, look at how much Trump accomplished in 4 years. In a Democrat-controlled House, in 4 years being constantly attacked, constantly investigated, constantly treated horribly. Now look at what will happen in the next 4 years. It's going to be okay. We're going to get through.
We have to weather a bunch of stuff in the next 2 years, and I do think the economy we've barely scratched the surface of how bad it's going to get. And so,
but with a GOP-controlled House,
well, they can cut some purse strings, and that will help. And the Dems will try and claim any victory that's given to them by the Republicans or whatever. All right. Well, again, we always run out of time.
I love our talks.
Bye, everybody. I'll see you next week.
Love you guys.